A tier list, ladies and gentlemen. I've got my computer right here with my little tier list ready to go. So no wasting time, let's just get on into this. First up, we have the bearded dragon. Now, I've owned 3 bearded dragons in my lifetime. The first reptile I ever had was a bearded dragon, and his name was Spike, and he was a legend. I mean, I feel like these guys are very baseline, very entry level. I feel quite confident in saying that every reptile keeper either has or has had a bearded dragon at some point in their time keeping reptiles. And if you say you haven't had a bearded dragon in your lifetime, it's because you're lying, and I don't like liars. Everyone and their dog has owned a bearded dragon. That includes you. I mean, in fairness, this one's pretty easy for me. Meh. Or are they mid? They're in that range, right? I mean, they're better than meh, right? Yeah, we'll put them in mid. Mid. That's where they belong. They're just so common, you know? So common. Everybody has one. Literally everybody. Don't tell me you have it in the comments because you're lying. But that's why I'm putting them in the mid category. Because if you went round to somebody's house and they had a bearded dragon, you probably wouldn't bat an eye. Be like, yeah, everybody has one of these. I mean, bearded dragons have popped a lot of young reptile keepers' cherries, right? So I'm going to keep them in the mid category. I feel like that's where they belong. Now, before you guys get mad at me and start calling me names in the comments, I better explain a few things about this tier list. Firstly, the tier list is set up in this way. We have legendary at the top. Then we have cool. Then we have mid. Then we have meh. Then we have mistake. So the mid category is dead in the middle, right? Like, that's not bad. Not bad at all. And I mean, if you think mid is bad, some big YouTuber, I forget his name, but he's a bit of a twat, whoever it was, rated Margot Robbie as being mid. So if Margot Robbie's classified as mid, then bearded dragons, that's one hell of a compliment for you. Another thing, this tier list is not a democracy. This is my video, and I'm going to do what I want with it. So that's Reptile 1, a bearded dragon. Done. I've got a bunch more options down here, so we'll see how many we get through. I have like 30 more here available if I want to do them, but I don't think I'll be doing all 30 because this video will be way too long and I don't have the imagination, patience, or tolerance to do that. And frankly, I just can't be bothered. Oh, if you get offended by anything I say in this video, because you've got sensitive ears or something, then you weren't raised properly. So next up, we've got a Leopard Gecko. All these reptile photos are just in a random order. It's just whatever this software decided to do. And we had bearded dragon first, kind of a boring, very common reptile. And now we have a leopard gecko, a kind of boring, very common reptile. It didn't want to spice it up at all, just wanted to put all the boring ones at the beginning. Great, great. That's how you start a video, right? Put all the boring stuff at the beginning. But okay, leopard geckos, another baseline reptile. And another reptile that a lot of people start with. I have never actually owned a leopard gecko though. At the time of me getting my first reptile, I didn't have any money, I was a child. My parents had to buy it. They gave me the option of getting one reptile because they were cruel and they wouldn't let me have more than one. So the options were bearded dragon or leopard gecko, and I chose a bearded dragon. Now the reason why I chose a bearded dragon is because I thought, this is going to show how immature and petulant I was as a child, but I thought the leopard geckos looked a little bit like Pokemon, and I didn't like Pokemon. So I got the bearded dragon. That was the reason. What can I say? I was a kid that was thick as all hell. The English meaning of thick, not the American. So if I was judging this as I would have as a child, I would have put the leopard gecko in meh because they look like Pokemon. But I'm mature now. I've changed since then. I now use my left hand. I'm going to put them in mid. I feel like that's a better placement for them. They're very basic, very mid, very common, very baseline for everybody to get. Everybody's had at least one bearded dragon in their life, and half of the people have had a leopard gecko. I'm not one of those. Now remember, people, these are just my opinions in kind of like a funny, quirky way. I don't actually mean some of the aggressive, sarcastic things I say. It's just for entertainment. Right, the third reptile we got here is an Ackie Monitor. At least we're getting out of the boring, more baseline reptiles. I mean, monitors are cool, right? Pretty much every single monitor is cool. Well, I mean, there's a Savana Monitor in this list, so not every monitor's cool. You know what? I'm going to do the Savana Monitor and the Ackie Monitor together. Even though the Savana Monitor's like halfway in the list, fuck it. I get to make the decision. This is not a democracy. I am more powerful than this silly AI system. Right, so the Ackie Monitor. I think Ackie Monitor's going cool, right? Like, that's pretty easy. Or toss him up there in cool, or her, whatever she is. Just a handbag-sized monitor, all the great traits of a monitor lizard in a tiny little package. Cool every day of the week. Absolutely. That's where they belong. I mean, they don't make legendary status. They're not that great, but they're definitely a step above bearded dragon leopard gecko in my mind. But it's statistically proven that shorter people get paid less than taller people. And I'm just as biased as the rest of the world. Nothing wrong with that though. It's a deserved placement. Right, so now the Savana Monitor. Well, I have never had one of these either, but there was a point in time where I was considering getting a Savana Monitor. There was a point in time where I was that stupid. I came to the conclusion after doing my immense research at about the age of 14 that it would be a massive mistake to get one. Massive mistake. There were so many better options to get as opposed to a Savana Monitor, even though Savana Monitors were freakishly cheap. But I guess, you know, that's kind of why they're cheap. I mean, I just wanted a big monitor lizard to compensate for something else I was struggling with. I mean, the biggest issue with these guys is their diet, for one. That f***ing sucks to feed them that quantity of insects. That's going to be a nightmare. And also, they are grumpy, bitey little shits. Well, they're not so little, but they're grumpy and bitey, that's for sure. And tail whippy, they like to do that too. I mean, I have seen some good ones online, I will say. However, I'd say typically, based on the way I feel right now, a Savana Monitor would be a mistake. Alright, we're getting into a bit of a rhythm now, aren't we? A red-eyed crocodile skink next. Now, I'm a bit confused by this reptile, if I'm honest. They are cool, yes. They look f***ing epic. The only problem is, you're never going to see them. They're just going to hide every second of every day. So you better put a lot of time into making that enclosure look beautiful, because that's literally all you're ever going to see. But I mean, just look at them. Absolutely f***ing epic looking. It reminds me of the dragon from Dragonheart. Loved that movie as a kid. Don't want to watch it now because I imagine it's shit. But loved it as a kid. Sean Connery voicing anything is absolutely legendary.
Bond. James Bond.
Also, I hear they're not the greatest to handle, because when you take them out of their enclosure, they basically just play dead. That would be like hooking up with the prettiest girl in the club, but then all she does is lay there like a dead fish. I mean, they're cool looking, but you're never going to see them, so meh. Number 6, a giant day gecko. Alright. Well, I hate insurance companies, but I don't hate this lizard. I mean, day geckos, especially this one, are basically what people picture when you tell them lizard. This is basically what comes to mind, a green, gecko-y looking lizard. The big problem with these guys is that they like to drop flesh, not skin, flesh. Chunks of flesh when you touch them. And I mean, it's a bit of a weird concept, you know, just dropping flesh like that. Like, I mean, imagine you're in a grocery store and someone comes and taps you on the shoulder, and your response was to just drop the shoulder. Have it detach from your body entirely. Just laying on the floor there. But what if that handsy co-worker comes up and grabs your ass? And then your response is to drop the ass. Just like sever your ass cheek and then run in the opposite direction. You're playing into that co-worker's hands there, aren't you? I mean, literally you are. I mean, I'm sure it's a useful adaptation in the wild, but not in the pet hobby. They belong in the meh category. Next up, the Chinese water dragon. I mean, if it was an Australian water dragon, they'd be going in the legendary category. But it isn't, it's a Chinese one, so I want to put this in the cool category, I think. They are pretty common, and they are another one of those kind of foundation pet reptiles that a lot of people start with. And I see an absolute ton of these on like Kijiji, which is the Canadian version of Craigslist. Wherever you are, if there's reptiles being kept around you, there's going to be a ton of them on your second-hand dealers. But I think the main reason for that is people get these guys not realizing how big they get. Then they try and rehome them because they don't want to facilitate a reptile that can obtain the size that these guys can get to. Which is sad, because I wish people would just do better research. You know, Google's a thing. You can Google how big does a Chinese water dragon get and how quick, and it will tell you. And it's going to be relatively accurate. You know enough information from that Google search as to whether you can obtain one and keep it indefinitely. I mean, Google is free, people. Like, let's use it. I feel like they deserve the cool tier because they are an absolutely epic reptile, but they feel more mid because of how abundant they are, but they should not be that abundant. So I'm going to put them in the cool tier. That's where they belong in my mind. But I definitely think that they're a step above the bearded dragon and leopard gecko, so I'm putting them in the cool tier. Right, so we got some that we can probably just knock off real quick here. Green iguanas fucking suck, so they can go in mistake category. No argument against that one. Crested geckos are another super common, kind of boring reptile, so they can just go in the mid category. I'm not going to go through another explanation as to why they deserve it. That's just where they belong. So we got the African fat-tailed gecko, which is basically just a leopard gecko with a different skin. I'm going to put them in meh. I don't like plagiarism. So next up, we got the Legless Lizard. That's a cool lizard in my mind. That is fucking cool. One of my friends used to have one of these, and hers was an absolute bloody maniac. But, I mean, in fairness, you would be pissed, wouldn't you? It's like they've got stuck in the middle of an evolution. Or maybe they were just late for whatever evolutionary meeting they were having at that time. Like a group of lizards decided they wanted to be different from the rest. They wanted to change. They wanted to get rid of their limbs, which is a little odd, sure, but maybe they had a reason for that. Maybe they thought these things were just kind of stupid, right? Just kind of getting in the way. Like, let's just get rid of them, streamline everything. So those lizards, in my mind, this is how it worked, had a meeting and determined that they wanted to become snakes. Then our guy, the Legless Lizard here, showed up for the meeting late, but knew what the final destination was of the meeting. So instead of trying to reassess or get another meeting set up, he just went, fuck it, I can figure this out. Next thing you know, he's literally just a lizard with no arms or legs. None of the other useful snake adaptations, just a lizard with no legs. As idiotic as these guys are, they're definitely very cool. Right, so we got a green Basilisk next, or the Jesus Christ Lizard. In my mind, these guys are just a slightly more flamboyant, pretty version of the Chinese water dragon. I know they're not genetically, but in my mind, that's how I see them. I think that they're trying too hard. I gave the Chinese water dragon a cool rating. I'm going to put the green Basilisk in the mid rating. So next up, we've got the green Anole, which I'm going to put in the meh category. Don't think there's much of a argument on that one. I mean, they look good in that position anyway. Kind of helps with the aesthetic of the tier list. This one's going to be a little obvious, but the Frilled Lizards. These guys are great. Dramatic and a little stubborn. Yes, but Gizmo is more or less the mascot of the channel at this point. I mean, Frilled Lizard are definitely one of my favourite reptiles out there. But this tier list is not just based on my opinion. I can't really explain why, but the Frilled Lizard, though I love it, doesn't deserve legendary status in my mind. I feel like they belong in the cool category. I mean, these ratings are just based on my gut feeling, right? And I just feel like the Frilled Lizard, it's a great reptile, but it's not legendary status. So, cool tier it is. Still a great position. I'm going to leave it there. None of the reptiles that we've done, I feel like deserved legendary status. I just didn't think like they deserved it. So there's no legendary reptiles for today. But just having a quick look at this tier list here, I like the placement of everything. I wouldn't change any of this. I agree with it. Happy with that? Let me know in the comments if you agree with my list, and if you don't agree with me, I'm just going to ignore you.